So let's start with just the beginning. This book is about the upstarts. It's about Uber, Airbnb, but some other companies, some of their competitors. And you start it in 2008, which was the Obama inauguration, which the founders of Uber and Airbnb were both there. And just tell a little bit about why you started the story there.
Sure. Well, first of all, I have to say those are the largest Post-it notes in your book I've ever seen. But it's also great.
I know. It's like I grab whatever is
they make them a little smaller.
This is actually leftover Valentine pink construction paper, which was what I had handy when I was reading this. So
it's good to know you're recycling. And thank you for the kind words about the book. You know, one of the things I was worried about when I started out with this idea of matching together the stories of ride sharing and home sharing, Airbnb with journeys of Uber, Lyft, Didi, and other ride sharing companies around the world, I was sort of worried that it would be two books. That it would feel like I really wanted to interweave the stories. And I didn't want it to feel like folks were kind of bouncing back and forth. But one of the things that I discovered when I was doing the reporting was that there were so many areas of intersection between the stories. I mean, not only are Brian Chesky of Airbnb and Travis Kalanick of Uber friends, and they learn from each other and they watch each other, and I'm sure to some extent they are jealous of each other, but the stories really naturally intersected. And one of the surprising areas of intersection was at the very beginning, at the Obama inauguration in January 2009, when the founders of a very little-known website called airbedandbreakfast.com were handing out flyers and kicking around the D.C. mall anonymously that day. And the founders of a yet-to-be-started company called Uber Cab were also there in D.C., staying at a VRBO and basically kind of going to the parties and thinking about what it would be like if you could actually get a car during a very busy moment like the inauguration of a new president in a city that was overwhelmed with people. And so in a way, it was just totally organic. Both of these stories start at the very same place. And then jumping ahead, the book ends with the inauguration of a new president. And it was significant to me that everything happened in the span of one presidential administration. Two companies valued at a cumulative $100 billion or more changed the way cities operate, left plenty of chaos and controversy in their wake. So that was, I knew I couldn't tell the comprehensive story of these companies because they're young and their stories are still unfolding, but I wanted to capture a moment of time.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the big things that they have in common is that they're often called the sharing economy, which I think is a misnomer. And you have a much better term for this, the trust economy. Like, this is something beyond Amazon, which you covered in your first book. These are companies that we're putting our trust in, like our bodily trust in. We're putting ourselves in the cars of Ubers. We're putting ourselves in Airbnbs. We as opposed to previous companies. So talk a little bit about the trust economy and why these companies are so different than the previous companies, Facebook, Google, Amazon.
Right. Well, I say in the book that these companies are persuading us to do something our mothers told us never to do: get into a stranger's car and walk into a stranger's home. And yeah, I don't like any of these kind of terms. Where the sharing economy in particular seems like a misnomer because these are oftentimes professional operators. But even the trust economy, I use once, and they're the upstarts. They're the companies that emerged from this last wave of innovation in Silicon Valley that was built atop a wave of smartphone penetration and the proliferation of GPS and new digital payment tools and established Facebook identities online. But you're right. I mean, these companies did not look anything like their predecessors. And that is one reason why all the biggest and best venture capitalists, the esteemed soothsayers of our industry, kind of missed these companies, or at least a lot of them did. They weren't purely digital businesses. A lot of investors saw very presciently that these were going to be battles in every city, regulatory fights. And of course, that came to pass. Uber got served with a cease and desist 3 months after it launched in San Francisco, and then the CEOs were different. Lots of investors passed on Airbnb because Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, the founders of Airbnb, were graduates of a design school, the Rhode Island School of Design. They did not have the pedigree of a Mark Zuckerberg or a Larry Page. And Travis Kalanick of Uber, he's a longtime entrepreneur, and he had started other companies, but he had a reputation as being somewhat difficult. That's one reason why some investors passed. Also, it's interesting to note that early on in the history of Uber, he was not going to run it, and neither was Garrett Camp, really the original inventor of the Uber app. And so, these companies just didn't fit the pattern of a Google or an Amazon or a Facebook for a number of reasons. And that is why many investors kind of look the other way.